Welcome to the Shekina Meditation Podcast, created by Shekina community members. Shekina communities are dedicated to creating free devotional spaces of Christian practice for spiritual seekers and travelers around the world. We post Christ-centered guided meditation each week to help you in your personal or small group practice. You can find episode show notes and other information at shekinacommunity.com.
Hello, this is Ro.
And this is Neil. And this is week 48 of the podcast. It's Friday the 13th of September, and we record this in northern Thailand. And we're sitting in our kitchen listening to the birds.
Listeners, this podcast is supported by you. Because this podcast is about meditation, we want to keep it ad-free. So our beloved patrons over at patreon.com support us for as little as $1 a month. And patrons get extra audio every month. So if you want to get some of that awesome extra audio, go and support us. You can find us at patreon.com/Shekina Meditation Podcast.
And supporting this podcast helps to keep Shekina communities running and free for travelers and spiritual seekers. And it helps us know that you appreciate what we're doing in putting this podcast into the world. Patrons, you're the best. You're as lovely as passion fruit fresh from the vine.
Indeed. Something else that you can do to help our little podcast is to rate and review us on iTunes if you've been enjoying using this podcast as part of your practice. Or you could also let other folks know, maybe send a link to a friend or recommend it to somebody that you think might enjoy it.
So, Ro, what have you been up to?
Well, since our space at Shekina Garden is still closed because we've been waiting for the mud to dry, for the river to go down, for the threat of further flooding to pass, we've been doing all sorts of other things around town. So this week we went on a hot springs adventure. So we rode our bikes, our scooters out about 30 kilometres out of town to some beautiful hot springs here in the mountains. And it was rainy and lovely, very hot but rainy. So sitting in nice hot springs with cool rain falling on us was very nice. And yeah, lovely motorbike ride through the mountains was very, very lovely. Beautiful green lushness everywhere. It was gorgeous. And we've also been doing some acro. We're going to go do some acro with some friends this morning. That's going to be awesome.
Yay.
Our friends Erica and Sion have come back to Pai, and so we've been helping them just settle into their house and doing acro with them and eating meals together and just hanging out. So that's been really, really nice. And how about you, Neil? What have you been doing this week?
Well, I enjoy some bird watching, and over the last couple of years I've been getting out into the mountains and looking at birds and enjoying them and keeping a list as well. And just this week I got to my 200th bird.
Yeah!
200 different types of birds.
200.
I've seen, yeah.
And that's just in Thailand, right?
That's just in Thailand. Yeah.
Amazing.
Number 200 was the common wood shrike.
Oh, we love your little common wood shrike.
Yeah, sweet little bird.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, and just waiting for mud to dry out at the garden and for rains to ease off, as you said, bro. And thinking about making a bit of a plan as to how to clean the place up in the coming weeks. Yeah. Oh, and I made some shelves at home. I'm looking at them right now.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
Something very satisfying, just putting up a simple set of shelves.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And they're gorgeous shelves.
Ah, thank you. Today's meditation is a Lectio Divina on Psalm 131, guided by Ro. The meditation will have 3 parts. During the first, Ro will guide us through some preparation, guiding us into mindful awareness and quietness of body and mind. And she will read the verses a number of times, with lots of silence in between, to explore the words with our imagination. And for the third part of the meditation, you can process your experience, maybe through journaling or some thoughts if you've been meditating alone.
Or if you're in a small group, you might like to have a talking circle, passing a stick or another object around the circle a couple of times and just allowing space for each person to share if they'd like to. We find a good practice to listen well to each other and not interrupting or correcting, but just letting each person share from their experience of the meditation. Let's begin. let's start our meditation time by finding a position with our body that is strong and upright, yet still. So you might need to have a little bit of a stretch or a wriggle around. Get rid of any little tense areas if you can. Perhaps roll your shoulders back a couple of times. Take a couple of nice big deep breaths in and sighs out. Letting your spine be nice and long, supporting you. Feel the ground or your chair under your hips. And begin to just let your attention come to your breath. Not changing how you breathe in and out, but just noticing the natural rhythm. You might still need a few moments to settle your body, so if you need to still wriggle around a little, that's okay. There's no rules about staying still the whole time during this meditation, but we find if we can be still just to begin with, it can help us to focus. So just noticing that natural rhythm of your breath as your body begins to be still. Perhaps noticing the different parts of your body that move as you breathe. Your ribs expanding, the belly going in and out. Noticing the weight and the heaviness of your body as it just sits still. As we just sit in stillness, noticing our breath, we might also begin to notice other parts of our body. You might like to draw your attention to what you can feel on your skin. Maybe the feel of your clothes touching different parts of you. Maybe a breath of wind, the floor beneath you. The different parts of your body where they touch each other, perhaps your hands are in your lap or on your knees. Notice their weight. If your legs are crossed, noticing what parts of your legs touch each other. Noticing all the sensations coming through your skin. You might begin to notice some areas of your body that are maybe a little tight or sore. We can use our breath to try to just bring a little more relaxation to those areas of our body. For you, it might be hips or neck or shoulders. If you notice anywhere that feels achy or tired, you might like to imagine directing your breath to that part of your body, filling up that part of your body with air on the inhalation. And as you exhale, perhaps letting go of a little bit of tension, relaxing the muscles a little further, just as it's available to you today. As we bring stillness and quietness to our bodies, we can often notice that the internal world of our thoughts and emotions is not quite so still or silent. So we're going to spend a few moments just noticing what's happening in that inner world. We're going to notice our thoughts, our feelings. We're not going to judge them, but we're going to be kind to ourselves and just notice what's happening in our minds. You might like to imagine that your thoughts are beautiful rocks or gemstones, and that you're picking them up one at a time, turning them over in your hands, looking at them, noticing them, and then placing them to the side. You might like to imagine when you place them, you're putting them in a box or a beautiful bowl. We're going to take a few moments just to notice all the different thoughts, all the different things that are happening in our minds. Just noticing them as they come up, and then putting them into our box or bowl. Now you might like to imagine picking up your box or bowl and putting it to the side or maybe behind you. Just in your imagination, taking those thoughts, putting them away where they don't need to bother you for this meditation time. It's very normal for thoughts to come in, to interrupt or distract us during our meditation. So if this image works for you, you might like to imagine, again, taking them, noticing them, and purposefully putting them to the side. We're going to turn in a moment to our reading for this meditation time. I'll be reading Psalm 131. As I read, I just invite you to play with the words, with your imagination. See what thoughts or ideas might stand out to you. Maybe images might come to mind or memories. All of that is part of the meditation, and we welcome those things. We can just use this time to explore and listen to what the divine might be saying to us today through these words. You might like to turn your hands palm upward as a symbol of receiving and listening to the divine as I read these words today. For this first reading, you might like to look out for a word or phrase that stands out to you above the rest. You might like to ask the question, God, what would you say to me today through these words? The first reading. O Lord, my heart is not lifted up. My eyes are not raised too high. I do not occupy myself with things too great and too marvelous for me. But I have calmed and quieted my soul like a weaned child with its mother. Like a weaned child is my soul within me. O Israel, hope in the Lord, from this time forth and forevermore. On this second reading, I'll repeat each section 2 times and leave a couple of minutes silence in between. I again invite you to explore the words with your imagination and to see if there's a word or a phrase that might stand out to you above the rest. It's okay if there isn't one, but just to be listening to what might stand out to you today. You might like to ask, God, what would you have me hear today? And why do I need to hear this today? The second reading. O Lord, my heart is not lifted up, my eyes are not raised too high. O Lord, my heart is not lifted up, my eyes are not raised too high. I do not occupy myself with things too great and too marvelous for me. I do not occupy myself with things too great and too marvelous for me. But I have calmed and quieted my soul like a weaned child with its mother. Like a weaned child is my soul within me. But I have calmed and quieted my soul like a weaned child with its mother. Like a weaned child is my soul within me. O Israel, hope in the Lord, from this time forth and forevermore. O Israel, hope in the Lord, from this time forth and forevermore. For this third reading, I invite you to again seek out a word or a phrase that might stand out to you. Continue to explore the words and concepts, the images with your mind, with your imagination. Continue to perhaps play with those ideas like a child, with curiosity and simplicity. Continue to see what it might be that the Divine is saying to you today through these words. The third reading. O Lord, my heart is not lifted up. My eyes are not raised too high. I do not occupy myself with things too great and too marvelous for me. But I have calmed and quieted my soul like a weaned child with its mother. Like a weaned child is my soul within me. O Israel, hope in the Lord from this time forth and forevermore. And for this final reading, I'd like to invite you to offer back to the Divine any response you might be having to these words. Just your truest, most genuine response. There might be questions, things you agree with or disagree with, ideas, any response at all that you wish to offer back to the Divine. I invite you to do that during this last reading. I'll leave a few minutes silence after the reading. The fourth reading. O Lord, my heart is not lifted up. My eyes are not raised too high. I do not occupy myself with things too great and too marvelous for me. But I have calmed and quieted my soul, like a weaned child with its mother. Like a weaned child is my soul within me. O Israel, hope in the Lord, from this time forth and forevermore. As we begin to move into the next part of our meditation, moving from time alone by ourselves, perhaps back into the company of others. You might like to take a few deep breaths again. Again, releasing tension in the body. Slowly coming back to the here and now. And moving on to our sharing circle.
When you are ready, take a few deep breaths and begin your time of journaling or sharing with others. Thank you for joining today. There will be a new guided meditation each week, so don't forget to subscribe on iTunes or sign up for our newsletter to get podcasts delivered to your inbox at www.shekinacommunity.com/podcast newsletter. Have a beautiful week. Blessings to you.